In the summer of 1916, an army that had been losing for 2 years inflicted more than 1 million casualties on its enemy in just a few weeks. Yet that very victory shortened the path to an empire's collapse. This is the story of Russia's greatest victory in the First World War, a victory that could not save the future. Episode 18.2, Alexei Brusilov, Victory Without a Future. In the summer of 1916, after the disasters of 1914 and the Great Retreat of 1915, the Russian army still fielded millions of soldiers on paper, but internally it was exhausted and fragile. One commander proved that Russia's defeat was not inevitable. His name was Alexei Brusilov. What he carried out was not merely a successful operation, but a historical experiment. Can an idea save a decaying system? Scene 1. Spring 1916. The Southwestern Front. 400 kilometers of tension. Location: the Southwestern Front, stretching from near Lutsk to the area around Chernivtsi. Time: May 1916. Brusilov commanded 4 armies, the 8th, 11th, 7th, and 9th. In total, approximately 600,000 soldiers, over 1,700 artillery pieces, hundreds of cavalry units. Opposing them stood roughly 400,000 Austro-Hungarian troops, protected by deep defensive belts, layered trench systems, and fortified barbed wire positions strengthened since 1915. But Brusilov understood something others did not. A single heavily prepared breakthrough only gives the enemy time to prepare. So he did the opposite. Simultaneous attacks across multiple sectors. Secret forward positions dug to within 7,100 meters of enemy lines. Short, concentrated artillery barrages lasting hours, not days. Small assault detachments instead of mass human waves. In effect, he implemented what would later be known as infiltration tactics, 3 years before the Germans used similar methods on the Western Front in 1918. Scene 2, June 4th, 1916. The explosion at Lutsk. At dawn on June 4, Russian artillery opened fire. Not a symbolic bombardment, but a precise, calculated strike. Within hours, the Russian 8th Army under General Kaledin shattered Austro-Hungarian lines near Lutsk. Within 48 hours, the front collapsed. Over 40,000 prisoners captured in the first week. Advances of up to 60 kilometers. The effective destruction of Austria-Hungary's 4th Army. By the end of June, Austro-Hungarian casualties reached approximately 600,000, killed, wounded, and captured. By the end of the operation, total losses exceeded 1 million. It was the greatest military defeat in Austro-Hungarian history. German High Command was forced to divert divisions from the Western Front, including from the Battle of Verdun, to prevent total collapse. For the first time since 1914, strategic initiative in the East belonged entirely to Russia. Scene 3. The peak of victory. The beginning of exhaustion. But every victory carries a cost. By August 1916, Russian casualties had reached roughly 500,000. Russia still had manpower, but not industrial depth. Ammunition shortages resurfaced. Supply lines bogged down in the mud of what is now Ukraine. Other Russian fronts failed to launch coordinated offensives. The Stavka, headed by Mikhail Alexeyev, supported the offensive in theory,
but lacked the capacity to synchronize operations across all fronts. The opportunity to destroy Austria-Hungary outright was lost. German reinforcements stabilized the line. Victory hardened into stalemate. Scene 4. Strategic shockwaves across Europe. Even incomplete, the Brusilov Offensive reshaped the war. 1. Romania entered the war in August 1916, believing Austria-Hungary was collapsing. 2. Germany was forced to redeploy troops from Verdun, easing pressure on France. 3. Austria-Hungary became increasingly dependent on German command. Yet, inside Russia, the consequences were different. Soldiers saw that victory was possible, but they also saw that victory changed nothing structurally. Food shortages worsened in major cities. Strikes intensified in Petrograd. Inflation spiraled.
The front was winning. The rear was disintegrating. Scene 5. 1917, when even success cannot restore trust. By the winter of 1916-1917, morale was brittle. Desertions climbed into the hundreds of thousands. Units became politicized. Discussion replaced obedience. Brusilov would briefly assume overall command in 1917, but it was too late.
In February 1917, revolution erupted. A system that had failed to manage defeat also failed to consolidate victory. Brusilov proved the Russian army could fight in modern ways, but he could not modernize the political system behind it. Conclusion: a failed historical experiment. The Brusilov Offensive leaves one enduring question. If the entire Russian army had fought the way Brusilov did, would the revolution of 1917 still have happened?
Or was the collapse deeper than military performance could repair? Behind this operation stood a man trying to coordinate strategy, manage logistics, and hold the structure together. Mikhail Alexeyev. He was the brain of the staff. But can a brain save an army when politics has paralyzed the body?
Next episode, Mikhail Alexeyev, the brain of the staff, victim of politics. If you want to understand why even the most professional officers could not withstand political collapse, subscribe and activate the notification bell. Because the fall of the Russian army was not only a battlefield story, it was a struggle between intellect and power.